Good evening and welcome to Racing Clear, our Cheltenham review show. I don't know about you, Matty, but I'm normally after Cheltenham, my mood is low and I'm sorry that it's over, but my overriding feeling this year is one of relief. How did you do last week?
Yeah, look, the first 2 days, I came out unscathed. The first 2 days, done quite well. We did quite well. The 25-1 post land with the new Lion. Had some nice each way plays with Colonel Mustard and Happy Go Lucky. Um, Not to get the trumpet out, me and my mate back to my town and Golden Ace on course. So there's proof in the pudding as well for everyone who kicks off. Um, so the Tuesday for me was great. The Wednesday, I get a couple of each way players done well, but the Thursday and the Friday, like just an absolute bloodbath for me. Probably my worst days punting I've probably ever had. In truth,
Yeah, that's like I don't think anyone found it easy. I think if you survived, if you made a few quid, you're delighted. And like normally at Cheltenham, I suppose we've been spoiled maybe the last 4 or 5 years. It's been very good for punters. The bookmakers certainly bit back, I think, this year. I've never had as few winners at a Cheltenham Festival as long as I've been keeping records.
yeah, me neither.
Um, like probably made a small few quid over the week, but Tuesday evening I thought I was going to have a right week because Tuesday went well for me. It was easily by far and away my best punting day. With Meyertown and Happy Go Lucky had a place then, and I had a decent bet in Copic the board. Actually avoided a couple of the short ones. Like I had no bet in the champion hurdle. Was kind of couldn't see a play there, and didn't back Mashborough because he got too sharp by the time I wanted to back him. Thought he might go the other way. I felt like I was after dodging bullets left, right, and centre, and having thought I was going to have a great week. And from there, just was a period Thursday afternoon. I thought I'm never again going to back a winner. I
Never.
was just getting horses beaten. I'd a run of seconds. Just unexpected party. I was very keen on. Now, that was okay. I had him each way. Then the mare, like the first race on Thursday, she got done 6.5 of
Oh, of
Cromwell.
course, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
halfway up the run in, I said, right, I've the bad run broken here now. And then she gets done in the final 100
She looked,
yards.
she looked the winner for a fair way out, didn't she? But I just think sometimes with these flatbread mares when they're coming up against the proper national hunt types, whether I think the hill is such a test, and sometimes there's only one that's going to come out. I thought it was a brilliant ride by Rachel Blackmore, though. To be fair,
Brilliant ride, brilliant ride. Look, it kills me to admit it, but it was it was brilliant. Yeah,
did you see the lad that won the 55 grand on the play spot on the Tuesday?
I didn't see that. No,
Yeah, so I was down at the tote putting the bet on for the last race or the second last race maybe. No, the last race, and this guy, so he pulls out his goes to the tote to see himself. Just like I think I'm just one that got the place put up, and then the lady at the counter said, "You've just won 55 grand," and it was just like the most insane moment I've ever seen in my life. Like this guy, this fully grown man's in tears with all his mates jumping around. And I thought, God, like this is just absolutely ridiculous. Like
brilliant.
just like, well, that's like you get those at the festival, don't you? It's fantastic for it.
Well, any guy that got the play spot on the Tuesday, like, we'll touch on it later in our Grade One races review. But
Yeah.
there was some crazy stuff. Um, but yeah, look, we survived. That's the main thing. How was your festival experience, Matty? I know you were racing on Tuesday.
Yeah, do you know what? I absolutely loved it. The whole day was one of those days where everything just went well. Like we got into Cheltenham early and a nice breakfast. Got into the course early. The course, I know the numbers were slightly down, but I still thought the Tuesday was busy enough. You could move around. You could get to A to B. You could have a pint in between drinks and in between races. Still go to the parade ring, the pre-parade ring. And that's one thing I thought about the parade ring for, especially for the champion hurdle, was absolutely insane. Like 10 deep, even the pre-parade ring. It was a brilliant thing to see. And I also thought I know about the infamous Cheltenham Roar. That was obviously apparent, but for me, when Cope at the board won, and we was in taps, and the crowd started chanting "Ole, ole, ole, Kopek." Like it was one of the loudest chants you've heard, and like you thought you were at a football match. I just thought the atmosphere, like the atmosphere on the Tuesday was amazing. But then you went from that to the champion hurdle, where I've never heard Cheltenham so quiet. Like when Constantine Hill fell, you could hear a pin drop, and
Yeah.
then you could hear the other side of the crowd, the Irish cheer when Stateman went clear. And then he fell, and again you could hear a pin drop, and it was just like one of the most undescribable feelings you could actually witness on a race course. Like you couldn't describe it to anyone who was there. You almost felt proud to be part of such an atmosphere, but also like just just very strange and eerie at the same time. But the overall experience of the day I thought was fantastic. Like it couldn't have gone much better at all. My only regret was I wasn't there for the next 3 days. Although my bank won't necessarily agree with that now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like I was excited going. I suppose I touched on it in the show prior to the festival that it was my first time going over. Really, really good few days. I raced Tuesday and Wednesday. I agree. I think like there was a kind of a strange atmosphere with, I suppose, the Michael O'Sullivan on the Wednesday with the two horses winning, and that he had the connection to. It was almost like almost a little bit eerie.
Yeah,
Um,
stuff
and
like that just doesn't happen, does it? Like that's just it's beyond written in the stars, isn't it?
It is, yeah, yeah. Like there's written in the stars, and there's just like some of the stuff that happened at this
Yeah.
festival. Um, was kind of hard to believe, I suppose. No matter how much of a fairy tale you might dream up, some of this couldn't even be written in a fairy tale, I think. Um, but yeah, the Tuesday, I agree, brilliant atmosphere early on, and then after champion hurdle. But the champion hurdle was, I don't think I'll ever again be on, like you've said, I don't think I'll ever again be on a race course live and have so many different, like I know betting the race, but the differing emotions and reactions from the crowd, and there was the groans, then the silence, the oohs, the ahs, the three or four different occasions during the race. You had the Constitution Hill supporters, then you had the Brighter Days Ahead supporters when she came under pressure, and then you had what happened at the last, which was, and I think after the race there was just shell shock.
It was people. You could see people going like, "What on earth has just happened?"
Yeah,
Like, but the
yeah,
thing for me, what I couldn't believe as well, we were stood down by the rail between two and the last and the second last, and everyone was kind of looking around thinking, "Are they both okay?" Like, no one's actually celebrating wins or effing and Jeff, and they're all saying, "Are they both up?" And I thought that was a nice, just it was nice, something nice to be a part of actually.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, The major talking points, I suppose, the obvious one here, Matty, is the starts. I I don't envy the starter. I think it's a nigh on impossible job, particularly at Cheltenham, which takes a life of its own in this regard. Like you go through the season, and most people are happy enough to sit wherever in a race. Your novice chases, your maiden hurdles, they're happy enough with their position regardless, and it's not a big deal. And then you go, it's like you flick a switch. You go to Cheltenham, and everyone wants to have a good position. There's bigger fields. It's way more competitive. It's very, very difficult job for the starter. What did you make of them?
Yeah, look, obviously it was borderline farcical. But yeah, as I say, I don't end the starter, but I think there has to come a time where you've got to realise these are highly strung animals. Like to get them to stand in a line all together and still not expect some of the jockeys to want to jockey for the position, I thought was just bizarre. Like you can't constantly try and get that out of them. You just like, and as you say, like even on a daily basis, you'll see them not, see them miles away from the start, and like they'll just let them go. They're not too bothered about the positions, and then you just think you've just got to let them come in. If they are jig jogging, if they are starting to break out with cancer, as long as it's not, if it's just one, even if it's just one, sometimes they're still, if the others in behind are still okay, just let them go. Like you can nick I feel like you can, and on a daily basis, you can nick a start and you can win the race from the start.
Mm,
At Cheltenham, you can lose the race from the start, but you can't necessarily win the race from the start. And I think a lot of horses lost the race from the start. I don't necessarily buy that John Bond lost the race at the start. I think he just made a sudden error, was launched into defence too soon, and put down, got in behind Solness, and never recovered. But the likes of Primos in the Grand Annual, his chance was gone.
yeah,
Maureen in the Dawn Run. I feel bad for the lads of the Close Sutton Race Syndicate as well. Like they centred the whole race around that one season, the whole season by that one race. Sorry, and it's gone before the flags have even gone down. You felt so sorry for them. And yeah, I just think for at Cheltenham, I think it's starting to got to be a little bit more lenient. It's not a health and safety issue either. Like if anything, it's more dangerous to get these animals to stand on the line and to
Yeah.
all dart off at their own speed into the first. Yeah, something's got to change. I think 7 jockeys were suspended after the false starts last week, which is just mind blowing. Something's got to change for next season. Imagine it will.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Couple of points on it. I just think one, they're starting too far back from the tape. Like it's natural that they're going to build up speed, the distance
Mm.
that they're traveling. Sometimes, and I know he let them go early once or twice as well, and they probably ran an extra furlong in a couple of races at least. But that distance to me has to be shorter. Like it's only to me, it's just common sense that if they're jig jogging a furlong and a half from the tape, by the time they get to the tape, they're going to be galloping. And the second thing is that I think it has to be more than one attempt at the starts. It can't be just reverting to standing starts then, because that's just too unfair, and that's been proven time and time again, regardless of the situations. I just don't. There's too many horses we see inconvenienced by those starts. I just don't think it's fair, particularly for the connections, like you say. And there are numerous instances, I think, over the week particularly with the standing starts for horses were just no chance from the get go, and I don't think that's very fair for their connections. Will we crack on with our Grade 1 races review?
Yeah, so I'm just going to say again, not a lot seems to be made of the Brits only winning 8 races again. It was the same last season, and it was kind of like, oh, this is ridiculous. The Irish taking over. And it almost seemed this year like we've just accepted the fact that we're just naturally weaker in the thoroughbred department. Like we won 8 races from 28 from the 28. Mullins won 10 alone. Django Bain the Arkle, arguably lucky to win. I think Madgebury probably would have won that if he stood up. So Maya Town was going to the ultimate Golden Ace in the Champion Hurdle. Again, very fortunate. Haiti Calais, I think, probably would have won, but now the hour was coming there. The new line was impeccable in the Turners. Caldwell Potter, brilliant in the Jack Richards. Doddy the Great in the Purse Temps. Jaguar, great in the plate. But then you had no winners on Gold Cup Day again. You had 2 of our best juveniles beaten by an unraced 100 to 1 shot, which is just absolutely just out of this world. No places in the county hurdle, the mares chase, or the Gold Cup, or the Hunters. 3 Grade 1s, and 2 of them were fortunate winners. Like, what does that say about the Brits? I just thought we almost seem to accept it this season, and we just wonder how long this can go on.
Yeah, like you say, like it was 8, but it could very easily have been 6, which like would be stark. Like I know there was kind of mumblings earlier on this season that there was a bit of a comeback. It's hard to see it now based on the festival that we've just had. Like Stateman had the champion hurdle won. All he had to do was jump the final flight. And like you say, Majbur probably, if he hadn't clouted the second last, probably would have won the Arkle. Incredible ride by Nico now, in fairness, and Django by, but it could have been less than 8. You could
Yeah,
argue maybe that the Triumph was a little bit unlucky, that Lulamba could have won the Triumph, but they're just not as competitive. And like some races were complete dominance by the Irish horses. It could take another while before it turns, I think, certainly.
yeah, and it's all about the owners getting the horses to England, isn't it? Like I think with Dan Skelton winning the turns, I think even by his standards, though, he didn't even have a great week either. I think if anything, it was shadowed by the new line winning the Turners. Some of his well fantasy horses was beaten. And the only other thing I'd just like to touch on is what's your opinion on going back to a 3-day festival? Do you reckon it'll happen or not?
Mm, I don't think it'll happen for
No.
financial reasons more so. Do I think I was happy enough with the program? I know we're going to touch later on potential improvements. There are one or two that I would have in mind, but I think the couple of changes that they've made have helped. I know people are critical of the turners being replaced with a handicap. I think that works. Like we saw how depleted the fields were in both the Browns and the Arkle. If there was a third choice, I'd shudder to think how small those fields could have been. Your own opinion?
Yeah, so the only reason I mentioned it, I thought just because I thought the first day was so enjoyable. Um, but I can imagine if I'd done the 4 days, it would have got a bit arduous towards the end. So I thought, well, if they move it back to 3 days, that'd be great. But then if they go back to the 3 days, they'll rise the prices and it'll be a lot more packed. So it's a tricky situation because if they keep it at the 4 days and they raise the prices and the quality keeps depleting, then you kind of think you're stuck in no man's land. So I think at the moment they're in a bit of a tricky situation regarding what to do in that department.
Yeah, I definitely don't see it happening in let's say in the next couple of years, but I do think it probably is going to be a potential possibility, maybe in 4 to 5 years, if this downward trend continues, certainly. Um, okay, we'll crack on with our graded races review, our grade ones. Opening race of the festival, Kopek the board, a good winner of the Supreme. William Money, a valiant second. Romeo Coolio followed the pair home in third. I think the first two are very useful here now. I thought that, particularly the winner, obviously, look, he probably missed the last. Would have been an easier winner, I'd imagine, because he did lose a lot of momentum as well. And I thought it was a fair sign of him now that he picked himself up again and potentially even going away again at the line.
Yeah, I thought it was very impressive. I wanted to take him on coming into the race. I just wondered whether the occasion might get to him. And but he proved me wrong. And I was very confident in him before the race, as we've touched on. But I mean, yeah, it was very impressive. I think so. I saw someone say that he would have won the champion hurdle based on that evidence, based on the data, which is incredible. Still a very much raw type,
Yeah.
almost York Hill like, isn't he? But it's not that straightforward. He's got a huge engine, and I suppose the question is like, do the Stephen Milkman trip? Does he go chasing, or would he just keep him as a champion hurdle horse? Because if they can eke out that quirk, get his jumping straight over the summer, this who knows where this one could lie. I thought it was so impressive. Jumping again, not incredible, but the engine and the way that he kept on after that mistake was very good. I thought William Money won a creditable race in second, coming off like what was quite a breakneck speed. Romeo Coolio just ran a solid race again. I think he's just going to be one of those horses who just continues to run well wherever he does, whether that's over fencing next season. Salvatore Monday blew up early on, very disappointing. Tutti Quanti probably wouldn't I catch her for a handicap down the line, maybe something like Swinton at Haydock. My selection Skylord was completely outclassed, and Work Ahead as well just couldn't do it. I thought Carnacki might be the one to take out the race going forward, perhaps over fences. Quite a big strapping sort. Looked like he'll appreciate further. But unlike last year's Supreme, I think this is quite a strong one.
I think so. Yeah. I think Romeo Coolio probably needs a trip. He was staying on again after being outpaced a little bit. I'd like to see him up and trip. His best form this season has come in well-run races. At 2 miles, he was steadily run Royal Bond. He was beaten in and was kind of disappointing on that occasion, but he went hard at Leopardstown. I think he needs probably 2.5 miles, I think, to be seen to best effect. But the front two, I think, are very good here. It was an above average renewal, I think, for sure. And looking forward to following Kopek the board into next season, whatever route connections decide. The Arkle was won by Django Boy. Incredible, really. I like coming down the hill. He could have been pulled up, couldn't he?
It was probably one of the best finishes of the festival, wasn't it? As I say, we were right down by the second last where Masra missed it, and that was the thing with Masra. I touched on the preview that you just worried whether he had that in him. Just that little mistake around Cheltenham. I think he would have won going away afterwards. And I also think he didn't look the most natural 2 milers. I thought he maybe even at this stage of his career, he has the engine for a trip. I think he would have won, no doubt. I thought I would do well to get back up. I thought there was no excuses for Loda Sud. I think if anything, he got there too early. I thought Only by Night ran a cracking race. I think she'll be for the Mayor's Chase next season. And Django Bay, yeah, like what do you do with it now? Because I mean, you wouldn't put him in the champion chase picture at all. Do you go for the Ryanair? or do even stepping up further. I thought it was actually a really good article, and all five or six, all five of them will have a future. I think.
Yeah, I think both Django Boy and Majborough would be better next season if stepping up and trip.
Mm.
I could see Django Boy playing a hand in a Ryanair, depending on what turns up there. I wouldn't think he's good enough for a champion chase. I don't think he's quick enough. I think he could be taken off his feet in that as well. But
It was remarkable. I thought it was remarkable how well he finished up the hill. Like insane.
it was like he was, and he didn't jump the second last well either. And I think
No,
that was kind of missed with like Majborough went through it, but Django Boy didn't jump it great either. And you think that's definitely his chance gone, and he still powered home from there. He was making up ground length and length on those ahead of him from the last. Really, really impressive finishing kick. Good ride by Nico. I don't think he really like. He just kind of let him find himself, didn't he, coming down the hill and let him find his feet and get a bit of momentum rather than, you could be at him there and maybe sour
yeah,
the horse before he even
it
turns
was
it.
patience personified, wasn't it?
Brilliant
Yeah,
patience.
really impressive riding.
Yeah. Um, the mare's hurdle, I suppose there's not much to comment on that. Lassie Mout did her thing. I'm sure she's going to run in the champion hurdle next year. I think they were almost apologetic afterwards in the parade ring, almost embarrassed. I don't think they really got much pleasure out of it, even though it's a festival winner. But yeah, regardless of the events in the champion hurdle after that, I don't think like Rich Ricky normally is jumping around the place and he's arm in the air. I didn't get that vibe off him. I don't think he was over the moon about it, considering that it was a Cheltenham winner, it was a Grade One winner, and all that. But I think his gut feeling is that maybe they should have rolled the dice.
I think he was probably surprised at how impressive she was, and
Hmm.
thinking, well, if she'd have done that, if she does that, if she'd have done that in 40 minutes' time, I think he'd have had a champion hurdle winner.
Yeah, penny for his thoughts on Tuesday evening. The champion hurdle, like I said, like I touched on earlier, I just think it was a mad race. Like, some races you see the result afterwards and you can make sense of it and you can comprehend what happens because you've seen it and you understand it and this is why it happened. But so much went on in the champion hurdle. Even now, like we're a week later, and I'm still getting my head around everything that happened in that race.
It was just bizarre. And do you know how many horses fell over hurdles across the 4 days at Cheltenham? How many would you reckon?
When he fell over hurdles, oh good, you've got me in the hop there now. 5.
Just four. So you had two of them in the champion hurdle, both of them previous champion hurdle winners.
Yeah.
Like it was one of them races when you run it 1,000 times in, you'll never get the same result. It was just absolutely incredible. And look, Constitution Hill was jumping very well up until that point. I've watched it back a few times just to see how he did it. And Brighter Days Ahead wasn't fluent at the same fence, and she at the same hurdle, and she kicked it down. And as it came back up, it knocked Constitution Hill's 4, and that's when he tumbled. So I think it was just a complete. I don't even think he jumped it that badly. It was just the fact that the hurdle came back up at him. He'd gone early and he tipped over. Just so like just Nicky Henderson's he's just got bad juju, hasn't he? Like it was just so unfortunate.
Mm.
And then Stateman was going so well. What can you make of Paul going at him at the last? I mean, he didn't look to be emptying, but the stride was there, and he got over the hurdle fine. He just didn't get the landing gear out, and you just think, well, what can you say? Brighter Days Ahead again, disappointing at Cheltenham, not for the first time. Took a right, Burdett Road took a right whack off her as well on the rail. I actually thought the road Burdett Road quite wrong for winning purposes. I know they were there to kind of pick up the pieces, which successfully they did so. But I just think I like the best he's been this season is in the Great Wood from the front, and even in the against Constitution Hill in the Christmas Hill, I think it was from the front, where he could have even beaten Lossiemouth had he not slipped at the last. I just thought like if they'd have risen him from the front, maybe they might have even got the win. But yeah, just one of the most insane races I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing on a racecourse.
Yeah, yeah. Um, on review, Constitution Hill, I thought he was really going well now. I thought he was, it's, to me, it was very early to tell, obviously, but it it was definitely the most taken I've been with him in the early part of a race since he's returned.
Yeah, definitely.
Just
Tank.
his hurling, the way he was traveling through the race, your eye was drawn to him from an early point. Um, so I'd be very interested if he comes over to Ireland for Punchestown for the champion hurdle there. Um, it would make that an intriguing contest.
Yeah.
Stateman, I think was actually putting up a career best until he fell. I know the race. Look, he didn't have Constitution Hill to deal with, but like he was going to absolutely run away from them, in my opinion, up the hill. I thought it was going to be a huge effort from him. And similar to your comments on brighter days ahead, I think there's question marks with her now as regards Cheltenham. Like that's she was slightly disappointing last season. At the time I was probably critical maybe that they weren't positive enough on her. They're positive this time around and she runs poorly again. Like I don't know, you can't say it's the ground either because it was soft enough last year. I don't know, does she handle the track like, or is she better on a
I just
elephant
wonder
track?
whether that effort took it out of her at the DRF. It was such a monstrous effort, like one of the best efforts you've seen a mare put up, and she just looks very laboured. Like even you could see the jockey on King of Kingsdale's thinking out on this, looking behind him, thinking this thing's not going very well.
Yeah,
No, if I go further anymore, no, she's going to end up pulling up.
yeah, it was evident from early on. I
Yeah,
thought anyway
yeah,
that the writing was on the wall a long way out
yeah.
that she wasn't going well.
No, but yeah, I mean, that's still up until that point. She ran okay, but yeah, it's either you look at it from the point that the DRF run took it out of her and you keep her fresh next season, or that she just can't handle that hill at Cheltenham.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Um, okay, so that's Tuesday's action. First race Wednesday. What a race! Brilliant renewal of the Turners. Great shout by you, Matty. You were on the new line. You were on it early. You were on it at a price. And I'm going to have to eat some humble pie now because I was keen to take on this horse. I just thought the English novices were so far behind that on price alone, that was my reason for taking him on. But he's been very much an exception in an average bunch, and he put away the best of the Irish. And I thought he did it a shade cozy as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think with this horse, if he'd won a race, if he'd won how he won in the Challow in a different race that wasn't the Challow, I think he'd have been given a bit more respect, given the curse of the Challow. But it just wasn't your average Challow; it was good ground Challow. I think these winter Challows, they just tend to ruin a horse, don't they? At that stage of career, and yeah, and I was getting a bit edgy nervous towards as the day came. Like they came for the yellow clay, but yeah, it was so impressive. Like the way that he travelled and jumped and settled, and just popped around on the rail in rear, angled out wide when a bit short of room. A wicked jump at the last, almost like Stateman-esque, but he just got to the other side of it, and then battled on hard past Nathaniel Lacey winner and the Lauders Van Nys winner. I thought it was a very strong form.
Yeah,
I couldn't have been any more impressed with him. I think he's a serious, serious talent. I didn't think Porter's Charm ran that bad either. I mean, I didn't fancy him whatsoever for the race. I thought the mess of his season by running that race. I thought they were going to win around Christmas. I've just had the Christmas time, and he just strikes me as one for maybe once he goes to fences with a mind and better next season, might be one for that for the Turners handicap.
okay, interesting. Yeah, I suppose I've mentioned the new line. I think he'll actually be better at 2 miles. I think a flat out 2 miles. I think he'd be
Yeah,
really really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing him next season in open company. The Yellow Clay and Final Demand will both probably be good chasers. I'm not sure what the plan is with the Yellow Clay. I think they're a little bit up in the air. Final Demand was slightly disappointing, and I probably would be careful with him now on decent ground. I think there is a potential that he's ground dependent. And down the field, the one I was taken with actually eventually finished fourth, I think, is 40 Coats. He came into the race on a very low rating. He's still a maiden. I think he's been revised his Irish rating to 143. I'd be keen enough on him now if he turned up to a handicap and Punchestown and could potentially get 3 miles as well. He was very strong at the end of the race, made up a lot of ground after being outpaced. I think it represented a big step forward from him, and actually at the preview I was at before Cheltenham, Barrow O'Keefe was very keen on him for the race. He was a huge price. Like he was saying, he's worth a play each way, despite it being a very warm contest. And I thought he shaped very well in defeat. Ballyburn, Ballyburn is right. I was very disappointed with him, I must say, in Brown Advisory. Just his jumping didn't stand up at all. I was kind of surprised by the tactics. Like, he was quite prominent at the DRF. Were they worried about the trip? Like, he was so strong at the finish that day. I'm not sure it really suited him. That's the only semblance of forgiveness I have for him, because it was a very, very poor round of jumping. I'd be very slow to get involved with him now again, in the near future at least. What did you make of the race? Lecky Watson ran out a good winner in the end.
Yeah, I was disappointed by Ballyburn. I was more disappointed by the ride that Paul Townend gave him. For a horse with that head carriage, who jumped so well from the front last time out, I just couldn't believe that they took him in on the rail in behind a wall of horses and not giving a sight at his fences. And I thought as soon as he put that bad leap in, his jumping went to pot. I was amazed he was still somewhat travelling, coming down the hill. Just that effort, his effort was always bound to peter out. I think he was lit up by the fact he was in behind horses, and I think if they'd let him roll in front, he'd have settled a bit better. And I'm sure he would have won. I still can't quite believe that he's got beat. But for all Lecky Watson, his stamina, I think he's been too keen in the past for 3 miles. This season, his season was settled really well, and I thought it was excellent. Well, is it the deepest browns you've ever seen? Not by a mile. Don't think you'd be seeing much come out from that form, but I still do retain a bit of faith in Ballyburn. If they can get him settled from the front, I still think he's a stamina laden talent. I wouldn't be giving up hope just yet.
I do think they'll persist with fences with him for the short term at least. I know many people are fancying him for the stairs hurdle next year, but I don't know. I think they'll try the fences route for another while anyway.
Yeah, I think they should do as well. Point to point, when they're bred to be a chaser, stamina all on either side of the pedigree. And as I say, his best jumping is when he's from the front. Not really put a foot wrong in his last 2 starts, apart from last time out when he was tucked in behind a wall of horses with his head on the floor.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're thinking along similar lines there. Champion Chase, one of the emotional, I suppose, races on the Wednesday, with Michael O'Sullivan's connection and Marine Nationale winning the Champion Chase. Probably much improved form of what he's shown to date. I know he showed signs of it at Leopardstown, but ran out a really good winner now. He'd have beaten Quilixios anyway, I think, when that rival came down. And John Bon, I suppose, disappointed again to an extent. I know there was the mistake, which did prove costly, but just feel like Cheltenham, I don't know, like the evidence is stacking up now. I know it's mistakes sometimes and it's different things, but I just don't think he's as good around Cheltenham.
No, I don't think he's a good. I think he's a probably £10 better horse going right-handed. But I still don't think that he doesn't. It's not that he doesn't act around Cheltenham. I just think he's got so much bad luck. I think as soon as he met that fence wrong, it was on the back foot, and any horse would be. I actually thought that for him to run on like that and finish second was almost a sign in itself that Cheltenham's not the issue. It's just his in luck running. I thought to wing the last like he did and stay on strongly. He's staying on past beating a horse, but it still showed that he had plenty left in the tank. All I thought was stepping up in trip. Like he'll go to the Melling Chase at Aintree over 2 mile 4. Go to the King George. If he doesn't stay 3 miles, go back for the Ryanair. Like he's kicking on. He's not going to win Champion Chase now. He's looked like stamina. He's got stamina to boot. I think you've got the chance of Ryanair next season. But yeah, Marine. What a poignant win that was, Marine Nationale. Such a good animal on better ground. But as I say, was it the strongest Champion Chase? I don't particularly think so. I think would he have beaten Quilixios possibly, but he's a mid 150s, low 160s horse at best. So whether the form is worthy of being a proper Champion Chase form, but then again, it not really. It doesn't. it never often is at the moment, isn't it? Lord captain Guinness last season, even finished in third again this season. So it was an underwhelming race from a form perspective, but a poignant win, which is all the more.
Yeah, I think like 2 mile chases are at Cheltenham going high speed. They are like if you are a bookmaker and you're looking to get a result, they must be the ones you're looking at because we've seen it in the champion chase several times. We saw it in the Arkle this year again. I know the favourites had a good record in the Arkle there for a few years, but they were just far superior animals. But you're talking about fences, 2 miles, going lickety split.
Yeah,
It really is a recipe for disaster. Like one mistake and your chance is gone,
that's
basically.
literally it. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
even if you stay on your feet. And yeah, I do see for ages, for 2 3 years now, I've been saying he needs to go up and trip, but I just they just don't seem to be doing it. I'd love to see actually. We'll talk about it in a minute, but I'd love to see the a switcheroo of the JP horses from this year's champion chase and Ryanair. But we'll touch on that in a minute without giving it all away. Um, we'll move on to Thursday's action. Um, the first grade one on Thursday, memories escaping me now. Um,
Was
was
it the
was
was
the
it the
Ryanair?
Ryanair? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was.
yeah, it was the Ryanair. Sorry, it's been a long week. Fact of foil. I remember tweeting this actually after he was beaten at Leopardstown that I'd love to see him in a champion chase, and this has convinced me even more. Like I don't think you can compare his finishing effort when winning the Browns last year to winning this year's Ryanair. I think he's a completely different horse at 2.5 than he is at 3 miles, and I think he could even be better again at 2 miles. I'd love to see him in a champion chase, ridden aggressively and just jumping and traveling. I think he'd be very hard to beat. But there's people left, right, and centre saying he's going to win next year's Gold Cup. I just can't see that. I think he was brilliant in this year's Ryanair, but I cannot see this horse. He just has too much natural speed for me. Like this is a horse that when Gaelic Warrior was going well last season, like he had him senseless um, over 2.5 miles. He was quicker than El Fabiolo circa time when again El Fabiolo was really going well. This horse is just way too much speed for a Gold Cup, surely.
I completely agree. I wouldn't even bother campaigning as a 3 mile horse next season. Or maybe they might chance something like King George and see who does have the stamina for it. But I mean, it was 20 lengths quicker than Caldwell Potter was in the handicap chase, and I thought Caldwell Potter was immense. And I know that Factfell had kind of the perfect trip through, but just his cruising speed is so impressive, and the way that he can quicken up, like the way he went past Ile Francais, who at that point was still jumping very well. And you kind of saw James Reavy look at Factfell, think, "There's no way I'm going to beat this." And we know how much of cruising speed Ile Francais has got. Yeah, I was so impressed with him to win a deep enough renewal of the Ryanair like that. Ease down like his beat last year is when a protector at 16 lengths, and there was no reason protector at should have failed. Like Envoy Island sort of confirmed the form, only being 2 lengths behind him. I thought Hart would have had a cracking race as well, but yeah, I mean, Factor Foul was just so impressive, and yeah, 2 miles. I think you're completely right. I think dropping Mansborough for the Ryan there before he goes to a Gold Cup, and then drop Fatsfell back for a champion chase.
Yeah, I think they might do it at Punchestown. I think they might try. Like he either goes 3 miles or 2 miles at Punchestown. Obviously, there isn't the mid range trip, and they have run. They ran Alaho in it one year. He was beaten in it. I know, fair enough, but they're like JP could have. I know the way you're thinking for the 3 mile Punchestown Gold Cup. I think there's a chance. And if he goes down the 2 mile route at Punchestown before that race, I'm going to be backing him for next year's Queen Mother and I, because I I think there's a chance that he could beat the pick of the 2 mile division at Punchestown.
Well, funnily enough, I actually looked at champion chase market, and it was 25-1 a couple of days ago. He's into 10-1 now, so I don't think we were the only ones with the same opinion.
Oh, I actually saw Patrick Mullen say that. I didn't realize now he was. I thought he was 20-1. I haven't looked at the market in a couple of days because I've taken this week as a bit of a sabbatical from racing. But I saw Patrick Mullen say that he's actually getting quicker as he gets older. Most horses kind of tend to get slower, and they need a trip then, but he seems to be getting quicker as he gets older. Um, and he definitely looks that. He just, to me, he looks electric, and he was the most impressive winner of the festival, in my opinion. The stairs hurdle, good old Bob Ollinger. If you had told me a couple of years ago that he'd win a stairs, I would not have believed you. Henry did him, just worked his magic with this horse. Rachel gave him a brilliant ride, and I suppose a lot of people, ourselves included, kind of thought Teahupoo might be vulnerable, but and he still ran a good race in second, but just done for a turn of foot on decent ground, and Bob Ollinger, a cosy winner, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was like. It was a fascinating race to watch because almost all of them were running with a chance 2 or 3 out. And I think you could just tell the way the race panned out. There was no pace in it for Tupu, and it almost looked set for Bob Ollinger to if he stayed the trip. He didn't even really have to stay the trip. He just had that natural turn of foot, and I thought it was an unbelievable piece of riding by Rachel to just hang on to him as
Yeah,
long as she could do until she realised, right, I've got to push a button, and she got absolutely everything right on that ride. It was incredible. There was money for him as well. I think it was 20s the night before. Um, Going off 8-1, there was money for him. And I wouldn't give up on Tupu. I just wonder whether, as he gets older, does he need that extra run in between race? I know that Gordon goes to he has one just on the side of Christmas, and then lets him have a few months off. I know he worked last season, but I'm wondering whether he's getting older. There's some younger lads coming through, whether he needs a run at the DRF. But then again, the ground, as we touched on beforehand, the ground didn't dry up for him. And if it's soft ground or heavy ground next season, I mean, there's not a lot out of the pack that can come and challenge him. You'd think.
yeah. It's a wide open division. It's a wide open division. I won't give it away now. I'm going to touch on one later on in my anti-post look at 2026. But yeah, it's probably a weak enough division. I think something could fall into it. Just my thought, and again, I will touch on it later. But Willie Mullins just seems to have forgotten that this race exists. Like, he has a ton of horses that could have similar profiles to the likes of Bob Ollinger, who won the race, that he's not even entertaining for the race. And I just wonder, like, at some point, either he just absolutely hates the race, or at some point he's going to say, right, I'm going to target a few with this, and I think he's gonna win it, because it's a great one that he hasn't won now in a few years. Penn Hill is last winner, or has he
I'm
won it
just
since?
just double checking now. Yeah, Penhill 2018, spot on. Yeah,
Yeah, and he said, like, Bar Classical Dream, who was kind of had a chance in the race for a couple of years, but he hasn't had too many real contenders either. When you consider that he's a dominant force in the Grade Ones at the festival, and there are a couple of his that would interest me for the race next year, but I'll touch on that later in the show. The Triumph Hurdle opening Grade One contest on Friday. You touched on it earlier, and that genius again, Willie Mullins, a hurdling debutant, 100-1, and he chins two very good horses, I think. One huge prospect. I think Lulamba is going to be a brilliant horse in time, just real chaser, like, isn't he? I know it's a cliche, but he's definitely going to improve for a fence. Just done by a speedier type, I think. But I was very taken by the performance from the winner now. That London Gold Cup, it's always strong form on the flat, but it's made its mark in hurdles now as well, and it was some performance.
yeah. I actually looked at the race IQ data earlier, and Ponyross was 17th out of 17th in the speed loss jumping department. So according to the data, it was actually the worst jumper in the field. And unsurprisingly, given it was his hurdles debut, but it just shows what a natural engine he has and what an aptitude he has for racing. I thought it was remarkable. Um, I think the first 100-1 winner since Norton's Coin, I think it was, all them years ago. Just one of the most remarkable results of the festival we've seen. We heard Willie saying the other day, like, he didn't even realise it was one of his horses running. He said, "Oh, it's Tony Bloom colours." He was, "Oh, it's one of mine." And you just think he had 11 in there. It was a 14-1 bar, several unraced. You thought, well, how can how can he get one of these to win against two excellent juveniles in Alhambra and East India Dock? And again, look, the form's there. They're both in the second and third. I don't think it was a fluke by any means. Lady Vega Aladdin in fourth, place Placer El Nacion ran a great race as well. Hello Neighbour in sixth. I mean, the form's stacked up entirely. It's not as if there's a bunch of outside pokes finishing in the first 4 or 5. And you just think, what do you do with this horse now? How do you campaign him? I mean, obviously, it'd been bought to go on the flat. I'll probably end up in the Melbourne Cup later in the flat season. But going forward over the jumps, like he's won a deep enough Triumph hurdle. Yeah, it was remarkable to say how poorly he technically jumped as well. Just one of them things we just think, yeah, that sums up my week.
Yeah, I actually did a lucky 15 on Friday, and of course it was Lulamba that was one that left me down. But at that stage, and I was after a bad Wednesday and Thursday, I was like, when that happened, I was like, oh, I don't know, will I just pull the
Yeah.
pin on the week? But it turned a little bit after that. But yeah, I just like the form is there, like you say. Time was good relative to the county hurdle. It ticks plenty of boxes. I think the second is going to be a right good horse in time. There was decent horses now down the field, and like you say, Hello Neighbour was only sixth.
Yeah.
Good Leopardstown form, and there wasn't any obvious excuses anyway for any of them. They all appeared to run their race. Maybe they got racing a little bit too soon in front, but it's not like he came from a mile back either and just chinned them. Like he was just sat behind them, uh, turning for home. So I don't think there's anything to that. I think it was just a really good performance from the winner, and he's going to be a horse to follow in both in hurdles and on the flat for the next few months. The Albert Bartlett, our penultimate Grade 1 in our review. It was another tough result. I was so keen on the Big Westerner since January. The race cut up. You're on at a price. I was afraid of Final Demand turning up here. He goes to the Turners, and she just gets done. A little bit unlucky, I think. She is keen, and I know she had to be buried away, and it was just a little bit unfortunate that she kind of didn't really have anywhere to go. I know some people were critical rather of the ride. To me, I don't know, and I'm not just defending Dara now here, but like he had to bury her away to settle her. And as a consequence of that, then I think you're in danger of having traffic problems. Was it the reason she got beat? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I think at the end she just didn't have enough going up the hill to beat the challenge of Jasmine DeVoe. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't think Doro Coope did much wrong. I know that he missed, was it the second last or the third last, and might have got a bit close on her. But I actually thought, I mean, I'm slightly slagging Paul Town and riding Ballyburn earlier. I thought this was one of his best rides on the festival on Jasmine DeVoe.
Yeah,
It just
very good.
kept him out of the main kind of ruckus of the field. When all his jumping's not been great. I thought it was an excellent bit of placing for him as well. Kept him out of the main ruckus, brought him wide. Wasn't tucked in behind horses, had room to jump at his hurdles, space to jump, and he just stayed on stronger. Like he had that natural speed of the champ as a champion bumper winner. I thought Jasmine Vote was excellent. I mean, and you think now, where do you go now? I mean, there won't be too many lads schooling him, wanting to put their hands up to school him over fences, would they? I thought the one to take out the race was Derry Hassan Paddy, who was kind of went a decent gallop from the front, was kind of led with Wingman for most of the way. Wingman was beating 31 lengths, and Derry Hassan Paddy, I was impressed by how he kind of stuck on up the hill. Was always going to set the race up for the two closers in front of him, but I just thought it was an excellent run from him in third. And they kind of I thought was, well, they could plot him for that for the Ultima, the Mayatown Cork Rambler angle, but it just looks too obvious now. I think he'll start in life handicap chases on the tough mark. Might be one for the Brown Derisory. But yeah, I think all three are probably good horses to take out of it.
Yeah, I concur with a lot of those thoughts. I think the mare would be worth following next season as she goes over fences. I think the winner, I believe it's going to be a hurdles campaign next season. I think his size they've mentioned, and they're happy enough to keep him over hurdles next season. That was the Anthony Bromley, I think the racing manager, mentioned that afterwards. And I agree with Derry Hassan Paddy. He was in my eye catchers on at the races after the festival. I think he's going to mop up potentially Grade One staying chases in the UK.
Is that the Coastal Star Novices and Boxing Day? I think you'd be aimed at that, I'd imagine. Is it only
I
two
think
box
so.
one
And
this
he,
season?
based on the hurdles form this season, I think he looks possibly an early standout for that.
Yeah.
In the staying novice division, I think he's probably too good to be a handicapper next year's festival.
I'd
I
agree,
think he's a
definitely.
little bit better than that. And the Gold Cup, well, we all finally know the way they're thinking. That's um, I actually I backed him without. I had a good bet without Galloping Deschamps, even though I was on Galloping anti-post and really wanted him to win. But I ended up, as it got closer to the race, kind of getting cold feet and having a small win only play on the winner as well. I was really impressed. I was really, really impressed. I know the race didn't go to plan for Galloping. Ground probably a little bit quick for him, but like they pulled a long way clear. I think this is still very, very good form. Galloping would have been closer, certainly, with a like if his jumping had been a little bit better. I don't think he was a little bit high. Obviously got hampered as well at a point, but I thought the winner won with a bit in hand now.
I actually don't think. Weirdly enough, I thought this was actually one of Galloping's best races, and that's because the race was 6 seconds quicker than standard. I think one of two races in the whole festival to be quicker than standard. The other being the Mayor's Chase. I thought it was a very the top two. I thought Anna Way Thinking has put up an immense performance, and the reason why I think Galloping ran an unbelievable race is his jumping was so poor, uncharacteristically poor. Like was never going well. It was he had to be taken out wide. He couldn't get that prominent pitch, and he was coming up and he just wasn't coming down. And then I thought he hated the ground, and I thought for him to still be somewhat tanking 2 out and looking like the most likely winner, and then to kind of not even drop away from another way thinking, still sticking on. Like you can kind of tell sometimes with these chases towards the end of the race where they start to be a bit legless and run up on the spot. Galloping was still going running to the line. I think he was just beaten by a much more impressive horse on the day who handled the ground better and the conditions better. But I thought Galloping Sam still won a huge race, given how it panned out for him. I wouldn't be against backing him for the Gold Cup next season either.
Okay, we're on. I see I could see Galloping going off favourite for next year's Gold Cup because I could see him winning at Leopardstown again, but I'd find it hard for him to reverse the form if it's decent ground at Cheltenham
Yeah,
again. If that
decent
makes
ground.
sense.
No.
Yeah. Soft ground he will come into it, and I think Leopardstown he'll still be hard to beat. It's strange for a horse that's won 2 Gold Cups, second in a Gold Cup, dotted up in a Martin Pipe, and would have dotted up in a Turner's had he not fallen at the last. I don't think his best form has come at Cheltenham.
No.
Because and that just shows you or tells you how good he is at Leopardstown. Like some of his Leopardstown performances are off the scale. Like what he put on Jerry Killam one day, was it 17 or 18 lengths? And most of that from the back of the last.
Yeah, I think it was 187 maybe. Monstrous.
When he runs at Leopardstown, he nearly runs off the course to pull him up. So I do think he's going to be a real player at Leopardstown next Christmas again. But I think Cheltenham may be a different story. Okay, so that's the Grade 1 races summarised. Before we touch on the 2026 markets, any improvements you'd make to the festival programme, Matty?
Yeah. So I think the obvious one is I'd cap the mares. The mares. I won't potentially get rid of the mares. I'd cap it at 150, just so you give the champion hurdle a better field. I still think the mares program is important for breeding purposes. Either that, or I suppose you move it to either Charles or the May meeting. But I think something's got to be done there to kind of to make the festival or the champion races a lot better. I also thought there was too many races that horses can run in this year. Like I thought the decisions to make the national hunt chase a handicap was a bit strange, as half of them could have either gone for the Ultima or the Kimber. I thought the Jack Richards, the novice chase, that was similar in that respect. Half of them could have gone for the plate as well, or some of them were even in the Grand Annual. So you had like 5 or 6 races where there was a lot of horses triply entered, and it made it tricky before prior to declaration stage. And there was just a lot of races that seemed too similar. I think at Cheltenham it should be unique, it should be competitive, and they just didn't feel like a championship meeting in that respect. I don't think. I mean, I think the five. I don't think the 5 race handicap or the handicap the new rule for that was. I thought it was a bit pointless. The 5 race rule, as Mullins still found a way around it with Jimmy Defoe in the Coral Cup, a horse we haven't seen in over a year. And I think all it does is it invites trainers to cheat for an extra two races, and that's all it is. Like, I mean, I suppose what they'll do now is they'll say, well, it's got to be 3 runs in England. You can't have had 2 runs in France, then 1 run in England, and they'll try and work it out like that way. So I just think like with Cheltenham, it is a bit the sport national hunt racing is a bit ragged. The people do cut corners, and without what it can be warped, and I think that's the beauty of it. But I just think when you're encouraging, I think when you're putting more restrictions on horses trying to get into races at the festival, you're encouraging the dark arts a lot more. I think throughout the season, which detriment to the rest of the calendar. I liked the cross country being turned into a handicap. I had no issue with that. But it's never really that competitive, is it? I mean, there's only 2 or 3 horses that can really win the race. You kind of have. I mean, Stumptown made a mockery of the mark even off top weight, and it kind of does expose those lower class horses. I mean, I backed Escaria 10, who I thought went 3-1. He run it at a point, and I thought, oh my goodness me, 50-1 winner. And he finished off legless, and Stumptown finished off full of running, and it didn't even go well for him. And I think races like the cross country, I mean, we've seen it with Tiger Roll and Delta Worth, it just exposes the weaker horses. And I just wonder whether they could do something different in the race. Maybe make it like, maybe even like a win and you're in for the national, something like that, to attract maybe a better field, not just two class horses and kind of a bunch of plodders hoping for a place. The champion bumper doesn't need to be there. I'm still very much of that opinion. It was a race that was introduced in 1992 to give the Irish a chance, and since then Brits have only won it 7 times. I mean, it's steeplechasing, isn't it? It's people don't turn up to Cheltenham to see a 2-mile flat race. If you wanted that, you go to Doncaster in March and see that for the open day flat season, or you look at the Cesarewitch, the Cambridgeshire. It's, for me, doesn't belong at the festival. Stick it elsewhere, but not at the festival for me. And again, even with the Turner's handicap, I know that it was a good betting race, but I could just thought again it's another vacuum for cheating throughout the season. I thought, well, then again, Caldwell Potter, I thought won it on merit, but I mean, you look at Nürburgring, who magically learned how to jump and travel in the race and stay on for 4th. I mean, it was clear as day what you could see they're trying to do with the horse, and a lot of them would have been at the same boat. So I just thought that races like the Turners turn it into a handicap, and also it was detrimental to the Arkle and the Browns. Like the Browns had a very poor field. There's a lot of horses who, I mean, it lacked the Turners lacked star quality horses. There could have been a lot more horses going to that race that we hadn't seen at the festival. And it was just another handicap that you could see elsewhere. And I think it was a good idea. It was a good idea from a betting perspective, from a competitiveness perspective, but from a quality perspective, it was detrimental to the festival. I think there's a lot. There's a lot of it like that. Far too much similar races, in that sense. So that'd be my main gripes and ways to improve the festival.
Yeah, there are definitely like a horse shouldn't have 3 options at the festival. I think the handicap chases novices should be exempt from that if they're keeping the 2 mile 4 furlong novice and the 3.5 mile or 3 mile 6 novice. I think if they're novice handicaps, then that's where the novice handicappers should run. I don't think they should have the option of the plate or the ultima, because they just have too many options then. I kind of agree on the mares. I definitely think it should remain because it's vital, like, and it has seen a huge upturn in really, really quality mares, the mares program, and there has to be an appeal to buying a mare. If she's not capable of taking on the best geldings, there has to be an opportunity for her to run at the festival. I don't know, would I have it in such a way that even if they win the race, they're not eligible to run it again, something like that. Allow them run it once,
Yeah, yeah,
and if they win it, then they can't run it again. They have to take on one of the championship races. I personally, I don't see. Look, Lassie out last year. I think it was the right race for her. She was only a 5-year-old. This year, it wasn't. I think that's the general consensus. You don't want a situation where a mare goes back and wins the Grade One 4 or 5 times when she could be really realistically competing in either the champion hurdle or the stairs in open Grade One. I agree with the bumper. I think that would encourage horses to go hurdling earlier, which would mean that we'd get more out of them as followers of the sport. I think our top horses wasting a year or in some cases 2 years in bumpers, I think is just. I know trainers say it's good for their development. Look, they can have 1 or 2 runs in bumpers, but then get them over hurdles, in my opinion, and get them chasing quicker as well, I suppose, because their life cycles are getting shorter. I think in terms of racing at the highest level, and what we want. If you think about the superstars of the sport, it's longevity. It's that they've been around for 4 or 5 seasons, but they don't get established in bumpers as such as real superstars of the sport. And I think that division is kind of overlooked by a lot of the casual supporters, at least. So they'd be kind of my tuppence worth. But definitely, I think there's too many options. I think I'd also probably look at the novice hurdle. I think 2 novice hurdles is enough. Two Grade Ones. Like we've 3 options, and we've the mare's novice hurdle as well. Okay, if you want to keep the mares separate, fair enough. But I do think that 3 novice hurdles, 2 miles, 2 mile 5, and 3 miles just gives too many options. Like imagine the Supreme we'd have had this year with if the new line took on Kopek de Board and William Money, and if you had Final Demand and the Yellow Clay in the Bartlett, how strong that race would have been. And you're still given them options. Maybe not make it 3 miles, maybe shorten the Bartlett a little bit to maybe 2 miles 6 on the new course would probably be plenty for novices. But I think you'd have 2 cracking contests then in the novices, and it would be easier as well from an anti-post perspective or a build-up perspective, because you want to build up a race and you want to hype a race. You need to know what horses are running in that race, and I think like that is something that the powers that be need to look at as well. I don't know, maybe a month beforehand, there has to be a cutoff where they declare their targets, because we're having all these previews and all this build up, huge build up to Cheltenham Festival, and you're saying, well, if it goes here or if it goes there, you can't build up a race. It's like building up a cup final or a Champions League final and you're not knowing the teams. You just can't do it. And it has to be addressed that targets are known at least 2 to 3 weeks beforehand for the big races, so that we can have a proper build up and discuss it with certainty. Look, obviously we're still going to be wrong, but at least you know what horses are going to be in the race, and it makes it easier to hype up those contests then. They'd be my changes that I would make. And I do think Cheltenham races should review the pricing slightly downwards as well. But we touched on that earlier anyway. The early 2026 markets, I'm gonna hold my hands up now here. I got a brief at the races to have a look at selections for the 2026 markets, and I knew it straight away. I'm going to get slaughtered for this now. It's the week after the festival, and you're putting up selections for 2026. Like I said in my Twitter, I don't write anything that I don't do myself. So I'm not going to just come up with selections for the sake of it. This is something I do every year. I'll mention shortly that I take a kind of a break from betting the week after Cheltenham in terms of the racing that week. I just freshen up. But before I do that, I'll always have a couple of bets on the 2026 festival. It's just when it's fresh in my head. I know you do something similar, Matty. I think you've had a look at the markets as well. It's a year away. Touch wood, we'll all still be here before next year's festival, and we'll be talking about what's going to happen. But was there anything that caught your eye for 2026?
Yeah. Look, I was asked the same thing by Gigi, and at that point, I just thought, I just want to forget this year's festival, let alone start looking to next year's. But I took a delve into it, and I think I mentioned Derry Hassan Paddy earlier. I thought 25-1 for the Brown Advisor when I was his chase. I thought it was excellent value. Just was like a big chaser in the making. You can't see him going anywhere else if he turns up at the festival. But too good for handicaps, and I think he'll definitely turn up there. The other one I thought was quite a bit, maybe a rogue shout, was a Lucky Place for the Arkle. It's around 50-1. Now, they said this horse was all set to go chasing this season, but there was just no race for him, so they popped him in at Ascot, and he won over hurdles. Then he wins again, and they thought, right, we'll campaign as a trying to get to be a staying hurdle horse. Didn't work out for him, but I thought he travelled really well. He just didn't stay at all, and he reminds me of Django Bay in that respect. How there's not going to be a race from next season over fences beyond 2 miles because he won't stay 3, and it were too high in the weights for the Jack Richards. And I just thought if the Arkle's kind of similar to what it was this season, if there's a good clip and he can just kind of pop away in rear, I don't think he's a slow horse by any means. Like he's had the total to live up with Golden Ace, he's beat her, and he's just finished behind her. He's beat her twice and he just finished behind her. I know that was over 2 mile 3 at Taunton, which is sharp enough. I think he will have the pace drop back for 2 miles like Django Bay would. I mean, if Django Bay could beat a Masborough, I mean, what can Lucky Place beat next season? So I thought maybe at the prices for an Arkle at the moment, Lucky Place might be one to play each way.
Very good, interesting. It's going to be like a lucky 15 I'm given. I've played 4 for the festival next year. This far in advance, I like horses that I think have definite targets. So 3 of these, their target is not in question as things stand as we speak now. The Mare's Hurdle, I think, is a market that needs to be exploited. I think there's plenty of options there. Like I say, I don't think Classy Motor is going to go back to the Mare's Hurdle. I think she's going to go Champion Hurdle. By her days ahead is going to go chasing. So then we're into like Jade de Grugy, could go chasing as well. Woodhoo was the one that kind of jumped out to me, 8-1. It's going to be her target. I said before the festival, I was actually against her in the Martin Pipe because I thought she'd have to be a grade 1 mare to win the race off a mark of 141. You know, when you factor in that's her £7 allowance as well, factored into that mark. Honeysuckle was only rated 158 when she won the first of her mare's hurdles. Woodhoo has now been revised to 151, and I think that's very justifiable based on what she did in the Martin Pipe. Like, she absolutely dominated that field. Now, it mightn't have been the strongest of renewals, but it's still a Cheltenham Festival handicap. It has a rich heritage in producing future festival winners. So I think 8-1 about her with a definite target, and question marks about those at the top of the market is very fair. Second selection is Jasmine DeVoe, who we spoke about. I believe he's going to go down the stairs hurdle route. He's going to be campaigned as a grade 1 3-mile hurdler in an open division. Tihupu, I think, has question marks now, particularly on decent ground. Bob Ollinger won it this year. He's going to be 11 next year. I think there's not too many that are going to come into this division because a lot of the 3-mile novices this year are going to go chasing. So I think he's the obvious one to step up to the mark. I know there's potential for Ballyburn to maybe abandon chasing and come back into this. That would be a concern. I also thought about Impere Pass, who has a very similar profile to my mind to Bob Ollinger, but they're pursuing chasing as things stand at the moment. Now, if I saw an entry for him over hurdles, it would be very interesting because I think he has settled better this year and looks like a real stayer to me now. He seems to be switching off in his races, but he wasn't priced in the market. So it was Jasmine DeVoe for me at 14-1. I know the way you're thinking. I know he's short, but he's 5-1 for next year's Gold Cup. I think he has this division at his mercy now. Like I said already, I don't think Factor Foil is a Gold Cup horse. I think he's too quick. I think he's going to be better over shorter. It's going to be difficult, not impossible, for Galopin to reclaim his crown. And after that, this year's novices, I'm not sure they're up to the level. And I think I know the way you're thinking was a good Gold Cup winner. And I think he'll be difficult to beat. And we know that's going to be his target again. And the fourth one is the one where I'm taking a little bit of a chance. I'm a huge fan of the Big Westerner. I think Henry's improved for a fence. I do like your angle with Derry Hassan Paddy, and he is respected in the same race. But I think the big Westerner will go down the Grade One route. Henry's not afraid to take a chance when he has a good one. He quite often pitches them in against the boys, and I think just the Mare's Chase being 2 mile 4, and it's kind of won by speedier types. I think, well, Dinah Blue certainly in a way. Limerick Lace maybe to a lesser extent, but I think she needs 3 miles. I think she needs every inch of 3 miles, and I think she could be a Grade One novice next season. So they were my four at a very early look at next year. I just realised, Matty, before we touch on this weekend, because I'm going to be handing that over to you, our eye catchers from the festival. I skipped along it.
Yeah, I'll just give you a couple. I thought Hot Fuss in the Fred Winter, or the
Yes.
whatever they call it now, the Holland Garter, whatever it was. I thought it was it was very eye catching from the front. I was on him and I just thought, what are you doing shooting off so fast like this?
Hmm.
His jumping was magnificent. Miles claimed the race IQ data. They just made too much use of him. He went clear with Stencil and Solar Drive. Put him in. Those three were for the head of affairs for most of the race. Stencil beating 28 lengths and Solar Drive beating 54 lengths. Hot for Sun just touched off about a few strides from home. It's about 6 lengths, I think. The first three home all came from rear. And yeah, if it had been a bit more reserved, I think it'd potentially been a bit more closer. Although he maybe wasn't suited to hanging left late on. He's only been put up £2 for a mark of 124. He's still thrown in on the East India Dock form, which is held up. And I think the big race in him over hurdles. I thought Carnique from the Supreme was interesting, step up in trip. Could be kind of Jimmy DeSoy-esque where they kind of keep him fresh and maybe go for a Coral Cup next season. I had 40 coats down as well, outclassed but only beaten 9 lengths behind Final Demand. It was in third. Doesn't respect his hurdles, will make a promising chaser, and perhaps a Jack Richards novice handicap type next season. Met Hyena was one in fared best of the rear in the Mare's Hurdle, in the Dawn Run, sorry. Stayed on well, only 5 lengths behind Diva Luna, who she had 4 with her early in the season. Mark of 130 could see her go well in some of the top Mare's handicaps next season, maybe. And Rocky's Diamond as well acquitted himself well in the sales for a 5-year-old. Not a race that 5-year-olds tend to win off well in. Fared best of the prominent runners. The others beating 26 lengths and 38 lengths and falling. I think he'd be a big player next season in the campaign in the Stales Hurdle Horse. And the last one's Ethical Diamond, or rather unethical diamond, given the ride it was given by Paddy Mullins. I think if the campaign in Group One race, I think they've campaigned him all wrong this season. And I think once the mark had gone, Cargies was always going to be the stable favourite. He's still a 5-year-old. I mean, if they campaign him in Grade One company this season, and kind of drop him in the weights, he can win the counties as a 6-year-old next season. And the yellow car might be well handicapped off 1, 4, 3, 2. I thought he fed well in the Albert Bartlett. So those would be generally the 5, the 6 that I'd take out from the festival.
Very good, very good. I agree with a lot of those. Hot Fuss certainly, definitely. Big effort. I thought that was a huge effort in the Fred Winter, and definitely agree with Ethical Diamond as well. He'll be on my radar for punches down though potentially. I've just 3 kind of I know I had a 12 in my column, but the 3 that I'm kind of most keen on, I suppose, and not repeating ones that you've mentioned there, because there was a few of those included. Feet of a Dancer, I think, was very eye-catching in the Pertemps. Just maybe they had a doubt about her staying. Yeah, she was another one I was on.
Yeah, who I was.
Yeah, I could have filled the column now with ones that I backed myself as well, but I just maybe they had a doubt about her staying. I also thought it was interesting that Paul Nolan said she's a small mare and probably had a little bit too much weight. He'd rather if she was a little bit further down the weights in a better class handicap, or where there's horses with higher weights or higher ratings. She's gotten £3 from the HRI, so she's up to 135. I still think that's very feasible. She'd be very interesting at Punchestown, where it's a slightly easier 3 miles. And the way she travels through her races, I think they can ride her a little bit closer to the pace there, bury her away. And she would be of interest for a handicap at that meeting. Take No Chances of the Skeltons really caught my eye. Obviously, look, her handicap form from this season, her form from this season has been boosted left, right, and centre. There's the form from behind Woodhoo earlier in the season. She's a little bit. She's I think £9 higher than that now, but the winner obviously won the Martin Pipe off £11 higher. The second won the Betfair off £4 higher, I think. So if she goes back into handicap, I'd be really really interested in her. Now the British handicapper did give her £6, but she's up to 146. I still think that's actually fair enough. A strongly run 2.5 miles or even 3 miles, I think she's crying out for.
She beat
She did.
Cardiff in the season as well.
She beat Cargisi,
Yeah.
given her account. Cargisi obviously won the county off 141. So 146 is very, very workable, I think, for her still. The £6 rise might put people off. It doesn't put me off at all. I think she'd be very interesting at entry where the Skeletons have a brilliant record in handicap hurdles. And the third is the aforementioned by yourself, Nürburgring. Learned how to jump, learned how to travel. I think they actually suffered because of his campaigning this season. I think he didn't know what a race was about. I think he'd forgotten what it was like to race because he'd been so uncompetitive so far this season. He's up to 143 now with the HRI. I'm just thinking, have they the Galway plate in mind? He's already won a Galway hurdle. He does need to be ridden more prominently because there's no question mark. He stays very well. There's no doubts stamina wise, but maybe they were worried about his jumping, but he was wide. He was a little bit probably too far back the way the race panned out. The prominent horses totally dominated this race, and he was
Yeah,
sitting on.
the front three were the first three the whole way around, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah. He'd no chance coming from his position. Better than the bare result. Best of the Irish, I think, in the race as well.
Was Mars Harper in third? Or was that the plate?
That was the plate. He was
That was the
fourth in the
plate.
plate. Yeah, I think it was 1, 2, 3 for the British in that race. Maybe there was one Irish horse in there, but regardless, I think position wise anyway, I think he's the one to take out of that novice handicap, which should produce plenty of winners into next season. They were my three against the rest. Matty, I'm going to hand the last section over to you. I know we said we touch on weekend bets. As I've mentioned, I'm not going to tip up anything that I'm not going to back myself. So this is my week's break from the punting side of things this weekend. I believe you have a few selections though.
Yeah, I've backed a couple earlier. They're up on GG. Without the risk of repeating too much, I know we've had a long podcast. I am going in on Saint Segal again. Look, it's almost becoming like a parody at this point. But I was
You're
looking
going to
through the race.
convince me now as well, and I'm going to end up betting him even
Well,
though.
I convinced myself earlier, and I didn't want to either. I just get the race up, but like I looked through it earlier, and I kind of thought, what can actually win this? Like Bob Ricard, he's had a long summer campaign. He was impressive last time out, but in a lesser race. Theaterman's he's still a novice over fences. I think the yard have only 3 from 68 this season. For all he's somewhat well handicapped on the Ginnings Destiny form from last year. He needs a win not to work the Oracle. At Scarface, they must have. I've mentioned it a few times now. They must have an eye on that Sussex Champion chase. Only £1 high now. It'll be off for his life on the first day. I think it is. Imagine in the first time cheap pieces gets a bit of better ground, but again, I mean, he's just since he's come from that Caldwell dispersal sale, he's looked a shadow of his former self. He's got so much to prove. Risking the ground and Matterhorn there with other spring summer horses who might be over the top by now. Black Jerry's another who might be going for the Sussex Champion chase. Baloo pulled up 3 times the last 3 times. Couldn't trust that one. Numitor, the career high mark outside of Veterans Company. I know that I think he's never won above the mark of 131. He's on 138 now after winning on his penultimate start. And Real Stone again, not one I particularly like. So I just think like the only solid horse in this race, which is ironic to say, is Saint Segal. He's run 3 cracking races at Newbury this season. The first when done by the starter early on, and never had a chance to get into it. Funnily enough, that was the first time he settled. The best he settled in the race so far. Then he goes and bolts up over the course and distance to beat Bob Alco by 11 lengths. Like he absolutely hosed up that day. It was really impressive. Settled well from the front, and then it goes to the Scottish Champion Chase, which of course we put back to me on the podcast. 2 lengths behind the Kaluki Kid, who I thought has stepped up massively for the trip. I thought he's a really impressive progressive horse. And then he was third in the Greatwood. Two of the last five winners of this contest both came from the Greatwood last time out. And again, he's matched is the RPR of 144 for the last three times. Fared the best of those from the front. I thought he ran really well, just maybe done a bit too much. Set it up for the closers.
Did run
Booster
well,
both came from the absolute clouds. An excellent ride. Sean Bowen doing 10-2 was probably the angle there. Vincenzo was one that I didn't think he'd stay. Didn't think he really stayed the trip. Perhaps he didn't. But again, he's progressive as well. So I just think, look, he's not particularly well handicapped, but none of these are the ones that I'd imagine will be trying for the race. We know that he can. We know that he acts around course and distance. We know he's still got some wiggle room if he does return to the likes of when he fell against Boot Hill a couple of years ago in the Burn Chase. And just I say it'll be the last time, but yeah, I just think Senegal around 92. I think top price there. He's got a great chance in the at Newbury. The other I'm probably most keen on this weekend is La Vida Adiva in the 150 at Kelso. And for the main reason, it's just I think the race will absolutely fall into our hands. You've got Otters, you've got Saka Kerr, the mare for Skelton, who just shoots and does her own thing. She could either win 10 lengths or come back to field and pull up. It's either one of those. I imagine it'd be the latter. Then you've got Why Not, who likes to go forward as well. Doesn't necessarily need to lead, but she prefers being up there, so she'll chase Saka Kerr. Ottazini, another who has to go forward. So you've got three confirmed front runners. You've got Gail Marley, who again we touched on, but I think she must be over the top by now from that spring or summer campaign. Then you've got the Sandy Thompson mare, who's got about £30 to find with her field. And I just think the most plausible scenario is for La Vida Diva to come from off the pace. She has got to improve on that run at Air last time out in a lesser race, but it was a very steadily run contest, and she had no chance from Rio. She was hampered 3 or 4 out as well, given plenty to do. Stayed on well though. Stayed on strongly. She's from the family of Born to Sea, who was Born by the Sea, who was 6th in the national a couple of seasons ago. So stamina in the pedigree. She shaped like she needed it when second to Miss Cynthia market raising, giving her £8. Miss Cynthia went to go and finish second in listed company at Doncaster to a World of Fortunes. It was rated 134. So I just think on that evidence alone, like she might not have that much to find with Why Not. And sometimes with these mares races, the ratings don't always hold up. I think if the race pans out how it should do, I think there's only going to be one mare sticking on at the end. So La Diva, Evida, and Saint Segal will be my two most confident players this Saturday.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I think you have convinced me, Mr. Saint Segal.
Don't do it to yourself.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for punishment. Yeah, we'll see. I must have a look at the race. Like I say, I haven't even looked at this weekend's cards. It's total awoosa. Take a break, freshen up, and Aintree is going to be upon us really quickly. So I may not play anything this weekend, but yeah, look, brilliant to chat through as always, Matty. I love these review shows. Actually, we did one after the DRF.
Yeah,
It's great to look back. You know, we're always looking forward, but sometimes it is good to look back. You learn plenty, little snippets. Hopefully, our viewers and our listeners will have learned plenty from us as well. Matty, thanks a million. As always, you've been great, very informative, very knowledgeable. We've been Racing Clear. I've been James Flaherty. He's been Matty Sutcliffe. And we look forward to getting back into the swing of things in the next couple of weeks now. Now that Cheltenham is over, we can look forward to Aintree, Fairyhouse, Punchestown, and then into the flat. There's always something to look forward to.
yeah. The Lincoln's just around the corner.
That's it. That's it. Thanks very much, Matty, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Enjoy the weekend, all.
You too.